Hello, it's Carole here. I thought today I would just talk to you about some of the books that I've been reading this last year since Richard died, all about grief and losing your loved one. Just that maybe there'd be some books that might interest you, or some of the thoughts they've said that might be of interest to you. So the first one is written by a friend, Charles Handy. Charles Handy and his late wife Liz Handy, who died a year or two ago, were great friends of Richard and me, and she was a lovely photographer. I've got beautiful photos she's taken of Richard and me and of various objects. She really always got it just absolutely so very good. And Charles has written a book since Liz died, and he's really written it for his grandchildren. I'm sure you know Charles. He's a man who writes, I always say, contemporary thought. He's a genius really on the way he looks at society and things that we can perhaps do in the future that might make the world a better place for us. So this book is 21 letters on life and its challenges. As I said, basically written for his grandchildren, but I'm pleased to say published. And I thought, I've read several of his books and they always come away very pleased and rewarding that I've met them. And this time he's saying, I'm quite proud of the books I've written because some people have found that they've helped them. But books grow dusty and end up in the dump. I think therefore that I'm most proud of my family and of my grandchildren because they will last. I hope that they will go on to do great things or be great people. In other words, any success that I may have had in my life is measured by the lives of others, my family, or some who have found something in my books that was useful, even though I never knew. And he says that one of the nicest letters I ever received had no address, no signature. It just said, thank you, on an otherwise blank piece of paper. That, he says, felt good. So Charles Handy, I really do feel, is a man that has really original thought and very good to read. This book came in the post just today. It was one I just saw and thought I'd like to read. And it's an anthology of those who grieve. And it's edited by Agnes Whitaker. And the book's title comes from Edith Sitwell's poem, Eurydice. Love is not changed by death, and nothing is lost, and all in the end is harvest. And the book is called All in the End is Harvest. And I picked out an anthology written by Colin Murray Parkes, who is the president of the Cruise Bereavement Care charity. And it's called, as I say, All is Not Lost. There is no magical anaesthetic for the pain of grief. We cannot give to the bereaved the one thing they most want. We cannot call back Lazarus or Bert or Harry from the dead. The bereaved know that. They know that. There is nothing you can say, and they have seen others turn away, embarrassed by their uselessness. But anyone who turns towards the widow and the widower and gives confidence that they do have something to offer at moments of utter despair helps to reassure them that all is not lost. Goodness is not gone from the world because one good person has died. Meaning has not gone from life because one who meant so much is no longer present. The loss of one trusted person need not undermine trust in all those who remain. So I'm looking forward, really, in fact I'm going to read that this evening, I think. Another book is by another friend, a journalist called DECCA, AITKENHEAD, and it's called All at Sea. And it's really quite an astonishing story. They were on holiday with her husband Tony, and their young son was in the sea, and the waves had suddenly got much quicker and much more dangerous, and they both rushed into the sea, and Tony, her husband, saved their young son. But as he was leaving, the tide changed and he was swept away by the tide and he died. And so she's talking about how she managed through that year and those years since she'd lost her husband. And it says here, one of the references to recommendations, utterly heartbreaking, brave and honest. It will stay with you long after the finished page, or long after you finish the last page. And that's what I found. It really made me feel as if I was on the journey with her. And it was, just as she said, remarkably written, beautifully written, and devastating to read. So that's DECCA, AITKENHEAD, and I found that very moving indeed, and very helpful. I think it's always the help that matters. Another friend, another journalist, LINDSAY, Living on the Seabed. And her husband John at 35 died from leukemia, and she was pregnant with another child, which is, he never saw the other child. And then some little time after that, her other daughter died. Her other daughter, Ellie, died again of leukemia. So she really did have an awful lot to contend with. And she ends her book saying, "There is no escape from bereavement except by dying first. The more you love, the more pain you store up for yourself, because grief is the price you pay for love. For a long time, the fear of suffering more loss made me unable to let anyone new into my life. But that's not really living, is it? Nor is the best way to honour John, her husband, and Ellie, her daughter, memory. This is not the best way to honour their memory, because they wanted life more than anything. I finally realised the dead are talking to us if we can bear to listen. And what they're saying is, live, live." Found that very, very helpful. That's Lindsay Nicholson. And the final one is the one I read first. It's C.S. Lewis, A Grief Observed. And it's been well recommended, and I think it probably did, perhaps it because it came at the beginning, really, really helped me. And he was a confirmed bachelor, and he married Joy Davidman, an American poet, in 1956. And it says on the back of the book, and that's what I was reading, it said that they had 4 brief, intensely happy years, and then she died of cancer, and Lewis found himself alone again and inconsolable. And it says, to defend himself against the loss of belief in God, he wrote this journal, an eloquent statement of rediscovered faith. In it, he freely confesses his doubts, his rage, and his awareness of human frailty. In it, he finds once again the way back to life. Now a modern classic, A Grief Observed. And that's what I found. It really is something that I thought really, really did make a big difference to me. So they're the books, and they're what I would recommend that you could read. And I hope that that's been a bit useful. And thank you again for watching and for listening.